This is Nonprofit Hiring Hero Part 2, Interviewing for Talent and Examining the 4 Stages of Conducting Your Interviews. Here's what we're going to be going over in this video. The 4 stages of hiring and interviewing. We're going to be looking at how to check references and then how to pull in your entire team so they're all involved. In our last video, we talked about some really great tips for making sure that your hiring process is smooth. Using the right tools, just a reminder, Streak can help your Gmail inbox. Resumator, if you're handling tons of resumes coming in and you want to move them through this process. Automatic reminders and responses, canned responses help. One piece I didn't add that you should have is a Gmail sheet. The Google Spreadsheet can be your best friend in making sure you ask consistent questions in early rounds, so later rounds when you're going through the job history, itemizing that out and making sure you're measuring that. Some of the ranking questions that I like to ask are going through like a 1 to 5 score on, will they be doing something amazing in 5 years? Can they hit a home run in their first 3 months? Would they be great to work with? Would I want to get a beer with them? You can also put in your scorecard items here and give your own ratings as you go through. Stage 1, the screening call. In order to get this phase, you are not going to be calling everybody, but this gives you 20 to 30 minutes to talk with a potential candidate and really understand what they're about just off the bat and make sure that they're aligned. You're asking basic questions. Are you eligible to work in the US? Are you over the age of 18? Why are you interested in this job or this role? Sort of teasing at some of your scorecard questions. But again, it's a short call, just getting a sense for them. Some people do it over the phone, some people do it over Skype. Stage 2, submitting a project. After you get the sense from the screening interview that this person's really aligned with the organization and what you potentially are looking for, we want to give them a sample project that is in line with what their end product is going to be. Typically at Whole Whale, what we like to do is give them a little bit of data to analyze from Google Analytics, and they create a presentation. That presentation is then going to be later used, one for evaluation, but also potentially presented to the team. So think about what sample projects you can have someone do for your organization. Stage 3. This is the top grading interview that comes out of the WHO hiring methodology. Here's the summary of how we've adapted it at Whole Whale. The whole purpose of the top grading is to go through a full job history. Every single job that someone's had, you go through that resume piece by piece, asking 5 consistent questions, really drilling in and looking for the true answer to the question. And that's the part that really matters, because this is where we're getting the true data about the person's behavior. Honestly, people, in terms of their job and work behavior, they don't really change that much. You're trying to establish a pattern of behavior. For example, are they getting pulled or pushed out of jobs? Do they consistently have issues potentially with management? What is their working style? You only get this by really looking at each individual job that they've had and these 5 questions. The questions are as follows. What were you hired to do? Who were the people that you worked with? How was the relationship with them? What were the high points and wins of the job? How did successes compare to the previous year performance? How did it compare to the plan you had, and how did it compare to your peers? What were the low points of the job? Why did you leave? Each one of these questions you can drill into and have that conversation. This is going to be a 2 to 3 hour conversation. And you're like, oh my God, that's so much time. But remember, the true cost of hiring somebody who's not a fit is potentially up to 15x the amount that you pay them. So this time spent in really understanding and documenting their job history can really save you on the other side. Don't stop in terms of questions such as what were some of the low points. I wasn't happy usually working on boring projects. Tell me more about that. Well, every time that I had to write an email to my boss, it really bored me because I didn't like talking to them. Tell me more about that. What do you mean? In getting them to really talk about this more and more, you'll realize that they share a tremendous amount of information with you that you can then really understand what is their relationship to work, what is their relationship to authority. Use that as an evaluation tactic for whether or not they'd be a fit for you. Before you ask all of these questions though, the most important question that you ask is actually, who was your manager? Please tell me what their name was exactly. I will be calling them as a follow-up. This acts as a truth serum. You're allowed to call up anybody's reference, at least in the US and Canada, there are different rules about this. But if somebody knows that you're going to be talking to their former boss, they're not going to sugarcoat things. They're really going to let you know. After that, you're also saying, hey, how would your manager have rated your performance on a scale of 1 to 10? If somebody puts out a number that's like 6 or lower, it is a huge flag. One of the things I like to do is when somebody says, I'd say my manager would have given me an 8.5. I ask, well, why wouldn't it have been higher? That gets them into an interesting place where they begin to talk about issues of the way their manager perceived them and the way work sort of was delegated or worked between them. Don't be afraid to leave pauses when you ask these questions. Don't be afraid to say, tell me more about that. Be inquisitive, be a 7-year-old, and really find out. Stage 4, scorecard drill down. In this section, we're bringing people back in, and this is maybe the second or third time they're now in the organization. We're going to present their project at this point if they haven't already to your team. Now we do these speed round interviews where we want to bring in more of the people from the team to actually ask specific questions aligned with the scorecard values, the scorecard being the list of attributes that we were looking for. Each person on the team goes in there, a group of 3 or 4. They have preset questions that they're going to be asking to get a real sense of how the person responds and interacts with the team, giving people different opportunity to then come up with their own opinions about that person. References, contact references, at least 3 of them. This is so important. Even if it's, oh my gosh, this person is automatic, they're amazing, we don't need to call anybody. You need to call people. 1 out of 100 times, somebody is just lying about what their past job descriptions were and their performance, so you gotta do this. Feel free to call people that were maybe not even on the person's recommended list. Allowed in the US, not in Canada, keep that in mind. Here are the general questions you're gonna be asking. What were their strengths? What were their weaknesses? How did they get along with other people in the organization? You also might wanna be thinking about how some of the questions that came up in the top grading and the scorecard interview, making notes about like, hey, I know that there was some issues sometimes they said about writing super long emails and summary reports to you. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? The other piece that you're potentially looking for here is the conversation below the conversation. We are looking for rave reviews. We're looking for people that left and the organization is sad, devastated that they left. If you're ending up with words that they're describing as, yeah, they were solid, they were good, pleasant to work with, they were super nice with other people, I have no arguments with them. Those aren't rave reviews. The you're looking for is, this person was amazing. You would be stupid if you didn't hire them. That is the type of reference I give when I legitimately mean hire this person. You're wasting your time, they're going to get away from you. Final question that I like to ask actually is, what advice do you have, manager to manager, of how to effectively work with this person? You'll get some great tips in working with somebody. Sell the job. You've invested so much time at this point into this person, interviewing and bringing them in, having them do sample projects. All along the way, especially with the ones that you know have a high percentage chance of working for you, you have to sell this job. Think about it. The opportunity cost at this point is huge for losing this person. So what are the attributes that you want to make sure they know about the job? What is something that they're going to tell their friends and family, significant others, about why they'd potentially work at this place? Make sure that you, on an undertone, are always making sure that you're selling this job to them, especially as you get towards the end. Because if this person is an A player, guess what? You're not the only person they're talking to. Time to decide. Deciding in this process means that we're going through that spreadsheet that you created and you're evaluating them against the scorecard, giving them actual grades on those attributes. So you're asking everybody on the team that went through the scorecard process and interviewed them to really give grades on that from 1 to 5 is how Whole Whale does it, and then we aggregate that score together. Obviously, your scales are off or the one person's throwing it off. You want to look with an eye toward that, but if you have somebody who's ultimately getting a score that's like a D or a C, that's a huge warning flag to really go back and ask why someone might be giving them a low grade. The person who's the lead, so there's been one lead person going through, obviously hiring for this, and that's going to be your ultimate manager that has managed this process. You're going to bring in the team to decide and have a conversation. Focus that conversation around strengths of each of the attributes. It's not a time to be bagging on people, but you basically can do a strength accounting of the different applicants that you're looking at in order to really find the one that fits and making sure that the team is cohesively aligned with the decision that you make. The final point is, once you start, everyone usually has a tender like 3 months where they're in an evaluation period. At Whole Whale, we call them swim tests. During this, for us, 2-month swim test, they know that they're sort of still being evaluated. Obviously, we do everything that we possibly can to make sure this person succeeds in the organization, but the job interview is still quietly going on. The costs are so astronomical of leaving somebody who is like a B- player in a role, especially if you still have a bunch of warm leads out there that you can fire up that engine and still go after some of the people that you may have had to pass on. This is the time, right, during the swim test to figure out if it's a true match for both. That's the final piece of the interview process. This takes a lot of work, and you're saying, well, wait a minute, it's so much time. I know. But think about it. If you truly care about the what and the why of your organization, the mission that you're trying to accomplish, the reason why one team beats all the other teams in the NBA, They all play basketball, but only one of them has like a Steph Curry. You're gonna find A players. You have to spend the time. Really think about the process. Adopt this one, modify this one. Really spend the time on this because, again, you're not gonna win unless you have the right people on your team. Thanks for joining us. Check out part 1 of Nonprofit Hiring Hero to help you with some of the precursor to this video before you get to the interview process. And if you haven't already, subscribe. It'll be great, trust me. Now it's just freezing. You can still subscribe.